Hello, everybody. My name is Scotty. I'm the owner of Scotty's Fermented Foods. Fermented foods have long been associated with gut health, and this is actually very true in my experience. I've seen my own health improve, but I've seen so many other people who had gut conditions who have done much to alleviate their symptoms and much to alleviate their conditions. And one of these people is a very unique young man who I had the pleasure of meeting with his mother at when I first started this business about 6 years ago, and he was 4 or 5, 5 or 6, something of that nature. And he is a young boy with autism. He is nonverbal, and when I first saw him, he was in pretty bad shape. He looked to have a lot of pain. He had a very wild eye. He was full of what they call stemming, which is a form of self-stimulation, or that's what the word is, but this was much more indicative of pain. And it was a very sad condition, and his mother was anxious to try to help this. She had done a lot already, and she was getting into fermented foods and was looking for living, raw fermented foods, which is what I do. The turnaround of this young man was just remarkable. And I want to lead in with that, but this is their story, and I had a unique opportunity to interview the parents of this young man and tell their story, let them tell their story. It's simply phenomenal. And anyway, I just wanted to lead in with that just to tell you that, when I first ran across this family, this was a very severe condition. And of course, he is still a young man with autism. He is still nonverbal, but his turnaround and his progress has been absolutely remarkable. And I've viewed it firsthand over the past 6 years. And so anyway, without further ado, this is their story. What were the first indications that your son might have autism? What was the first signs? How old was he?
We didn't he was our first child. So we being the first child, things that we saw we thought were normal. We really didn't accept the things that were going on. I mean, he never slept when he was first born. I mean, he was always crying and stuff, but he still was making some milestones in saying words, recognizing us. Things started changing where he started losing his vocabulary around
age one,
yeah, age 1, yeah, 12 months.
I
By
think
14 months, we totally lost him. We were one of the stories of he looked out the window and did not see us as mommy and daddy anymore. He was completely gone.
Right, right. And so he was developing language functions, he was developing social functions, and then regressed at a certain point.
yeah,
It was just like almost an instant thing in a way.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
we-
Looking back, it was almost from day one. We didn't know it. We didn't know the signs. He would never sleep laying down.
No, I couldn't change his diaper.
And
laying
what
down.
was happening, yeah, he would always flip over. He wanted to sleep in the car seat. If we put him down to sleep, he would scream. What I came to find out many, many, many years later was it was acid reflux.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
We had no idea.
Yeah.
And, of course, when I learned that, it just
And
tore me apart.
he had an overload of yeast too. I didn't realize that I had an overload of yeast, and I breastfed all the way up until 14 months. So the yeast in my body was going into him. So on top of acid reflux, he was getting an overload of yeast into his gut system. What we learned is whatever gut the parent has, the mother has, you pass it on to the child.
Yes.
Even though I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do drugs, my gut was still unhealthy because I had allergies really bad. I had mercury in my mouth from fillings, and whatever you have goes into the child.
General American diet.
Yeah. And the general American condition. It's
Yeah.
not just our diet. We're waging war against bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are facing gut disorders through not really any fault of our own. This isn't I was doing this horrible, living this horrible lifestyle. A lot of times it's just the way things go down that gut disorders are occurring.
Yeah. I mean, environmental toxins and stuff.
That's a real thing that our world is much more toxic than it was just 60, 70 years ago. There's been a lot of things that are cumulative, effects in terms of toxicity. And in the meantime, our body is less and less able to fight these toxins. So it's
a war.
They combine, and pretty soon we're all sick.
Yeah.
before you began following a gut healthy diet or gut healthy regimen in terms of the diet with your son, what was his general behavior? Describe to us what he was like?
Very active, never could sit still, lost language. He started walking on his tippy toes. Always seemed to be in pain. His stomach,
He would
gassy. He had a
bite
belly.
his lip. Yeah, he was
He had
gassy
a-
here. and
had a
bite his lip
belly.
because he was
Um,
had pain in here. Same reason for walking on the
tippy toes.
tippy toes.
Was there a lot of stimulation? It was self
He had to jump a lot.
He had to jump on.
he
There
was
was
climbing on
a
that
little
stuff.
bit of a little bit of moving and stuff that seemed a little odd.
But nothing too. But I mean, it was just he never slept. That was the biggest thing. This child never slept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he never slept. When he got older, he was always upset. And then when he got older, before we started the diet, he got extremely aggressive. There was a few times when he was younger where he would just kind of sit there and stare out the window. And he was just, when we would I take him to the playground, and he'd just sit there, and he was either tired or just in pain. And
There was no eye contact. We could never get eye contact from him.
But yeah, then as the years went on before the diet, he got aggressive. But that also, I think his gut also deteriorated more and more. And even though he was eating, it wasn't digesting.
Yeah.
And he wasn't getting the blood sugar. He wasn't getting the nutrition.
This kid
No matter how much he could eat, he was still starving.
Right.
And with that dropped blood sugar, he was just getting upset. And he was getting violent, grabbing, pinching, biting, just anything. I mean, he was just that
He was
upset.
begging for help.
Yeah, all these you're describing, it sounds like signs of pain and trauma that he's
But we didn't
trying
know.
to do.
We didn't
Yes,
know.
of course.
We didn't know what was
know.
going on. We go to the doctor, and they're like, "Oh, that's normal." And we say, "Hey, he's pooping out everything he's eating." The doctor's like, "Oh, well, he's as long as it's going
As long as
through.
he's eating, he's fine.
He's still getting nutrition." And I'm just sitting there thinking, this doesn't sound right.
Well, we go back back to when he was about 3 years old. When we kind of started accepting that there was something wrong. They told us the recommendation was to go a gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet.
Right, restriction diet.
Restrictions. So we went into that, and we started seeing some results from that. But it's so hard. And at that time, you didn't have all the options you have in the grocery store. I mean, I walked in the store and I would just start bawling because I'm like, what am I supposed to feed my kid? And I didn't realize that I needed to shop outside the perimeters of the grocery store and not inside the perimeter of the grocery store where all the pre-made stuff was. And, but I also didn't realize that the stuff that we have now that are gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free has a lot of sugar in it. It's like the first ingredient. And that's not feeding the good bacteria in your gut.
Yeah.
It's
dead food.
Yes, it's dead food.
And this is something that a lot of people are learning, that processed foods, by definition, are dead foods. And there's maybe some nutritional value, but in terms of how your system is taking them on, it's inert matter. There's not a healthy response because there's not a bacterial response to them. But so that whole thing about the center of the grocery store being the processed areas, the dead areas, and having to go around the sections around the outsides, even those are oftentimes dead foods.
Very true.
Looking at all the
yogurts.
Yeah, the
yogurts are all
aisle full of
sugar.
yogurt that are all about.
It's supposed to be good for your
live
gut,
bacteria,
but they're
this and that, and nothing about
And they're
those
dead.
living. Yeah.
I can tell the difference. Yeah.
Yeah.